All right, so section 5. Now, section 5 is kind of a sum it up type of section. We're basically going to be talking about after all these countries have gotten their independence, how they sort of take their place in the world or the community of nations. I think your book uses that phrase in there somewhere. Okay. All right, so the first question is, oh, there you go. How have African nations taken their place in the world community? Yeah, somebody did say it. Okay. Now, in 1963, which is pretty much when almost all of the African nations had their independence, there's a few exceptions, but most of them haven't by then, or they're close to having it. The African nations formed an organization. What was that organization called?
The Organization of African Unity.
Yeah, the Organization of African Unity, or the OAU. Now, the OAU encouraged cooperation among its members and supported independence movements where African places were still ruled by the Europeans. So what would this be kind of a mini version of? The OAU. They're trying to work together. Members are trying to help each other out. Countries working together. What's this kind of mini version of? Okay.
United Nations.
Yeah, it's sort of like a mini United Nations. So, if they're sort of forming their own mini United Nations, it would also stand to reason that they're going to be pretty active in the big United Nations, which they will. The African nations will be eager to join, and they'll be taking part in a lot of the things that the UN does. Now, again, the point of both of those types of, both of those organizations is working together to solve common problems. And that's the whole point of the United Nations as well. The United Nations is supposed to provide a way where countries can solve disputes without resorting to warfare. All right, so the second question, what issues are most African nations dealing with today? Now, when we say today, that was roughly about 2005-ish, I think is when the book was written, somewhere in there. Okay? All right, so what problems were African nations encountering at the turn of the century? So what do we got in question number 2 here? What's one of those problems? What do you got there, Mike? See, we're looking at the other.
Urbanization.
Okay, urbanization. Okay. Now, what does that mean? It's kind of a fancy word, but it's really pretty easy to understand if you know the root word there. What's urbanization? What does that mean? What's that?
More and more people were moving to the cities instead of living out in the country.
Yes, more and more people move to the cities, which means the cities will grow, which means you have more pavement, you have more buildings. So what do you have less of? When the cities are growing and expanding and getting bigger, what do you have less of?
Farmland?
Well, yeah, rural land anyway, outside the city. So habitats start getting messed up for animals. Anybody ever had a deer in their backyard? Yeah. Why? Because their habitat, they didn't want to come hang out with you. They don't want to, come get petted. Something has messed up their habitat. They're looking for food. Well, imagine you're in a new suburb of some African city, and here comes Simba in your backyard. That might be a little less cute, you know. When there's a deer in your backyard, everybody has to go out and look, right? Everybody takes pictures. Okay? If Simba's in your backyard, you might want to run. Just say it. Of course, it won't do any good because he'll be faster than you. But hopefully he's not hungry. Now, but there's more to the problem of urbanization than just that, just the building of the cities. So when people are moving from the countryside to the cities, they're doing that because they're hoping to do what in the cities? What are they hoping to find there? What are they hoping to find in the cities? I know the answer is not love and happiness. What are they hoping to find there? Okay.
Money.
Just lay around on the ground?
Well, they're going for like jobs.
There you go. They're expecting to find jobs. And those jobs will help them make money, which will improve their families' lives. Okay, so usually what would happen is the father would move to the city and try to get a job, and then get a job, and then start making some money. And when he's made enough, send for the family and buy a place to live. Sounds like a good plan. The problem is, most of the time, say City X, there's 1,000 jobs, and 10,000 people move there trying to get those jobs. So obviously not everybody's getting that job that they were trying to get, so they're going to have to try to find something else. And so what you have is the rise of what your book calls slums, which would basically be these people moving from the country trying to find a place to live. It might be a cardboard box. If they're lucky, it might just be lying out on the ground somewhere. Now, when you have these slums, nobody likes living in poor conditions, but it's also people from all over that come to these spots. So in the same spot, the same place, this slum, you have people from all different kinds of ethnic groups. And so we see that same problem we've seen before in a slightly different way. Okay, so all these people, let's say everybody in here moved to the slum, and everybody's from a different ethnic group. So chances are there are a few ethnic groups in here that don't like each other. And now you're living close together, you live in pretty crappy conditions, you're probably not really thrilled about the way your life is going. What could go wrong? That was sarcasm. A lot of things can go wrong. So the people of the different ethnic groups that don't like each other, this is just going to make things worse. And it's obviously not anybody's fault, but when things go bad, people want to find someone to blame. And it's easy to pick that someone from a different ethnic group, so there's problems in these slums. And also, don't forget, when the father is away in the city trying to get a job, back home, wherever that is, the mom is having to do the job of two people, mother and father. And so the traditional family culture is weakened as well. All right, so that's one problem, urbanization. What's another problem that African nations have been dealing with? We basically say they're modern problems.
Women's rights.
Yeah, the role of women. Remember, a lot of countries wanted women to be educated, and some had actually done that, but not enough, not everybody. And like we said, a lot of times the women are left behind in the countryside when the husband goes to the city. And this puts a tremendous amount of stress on the women. They're having to perform the roles of two people. That means taking care of the children, but also taking care of the farm and doing all the farm work and doing all the cooking and cleaning and all the other things that go into taking care of a family. And, they get a little money every once in a while sent to them by their husband. But the husband is in the city trying to find a job, trying to do that. So it's a rough go for women. Now, these issues that we're talking about with people moving to the cities and women is not unique to Africa. It's pretty common any place that we would call the developing world. So if you would go to not most, but a number of places in, say, Central and South America where they've struggled economically, you would see the same kinds of things. All right, so that's two issues, urbanization and women. What's the third? Okay.
There's diverse religions.
Well, yes, but one particular religion is the one we want to look at here. And which one are we talking about? We've actually talked about in Africa, there being problems with this all the way back to ancient Africa, even back in the fall.
Islam.
Yeah, Islam. Now, not that Islam itself is a problem, but remember there were those that wanted what your book calls the Islamic revival, but that is, remember, people that think the religion's not being practiced the right way now, we need to go back to the way it used to be, back in the good old days, and that all grew into Islamic fundamentalism. And there's a lot of fundamentalists there's a lot of fundamentalists in developing countries especially. And so when people's lives are bad, they're willing to listen to sort of different ideas. And so Islamic fundamentalism is an issue that every African nation that has Muslims in it, especially if they're not doing super well economically, is going to have to deal with as well. All right, that finishes up section 5. Any questions over that? Okay, hang on one second.